Today I'm bringing you a tour through the air of my property, all 144 acres plus some. I hope you enjoy it. Now, I have a habitat tour series out there right now. I'm still working on the last couple episodes, which happen to be the best parts of the farm. I just haven't got to them yet, even though I have the footage. But today is all through the air, about 300 feet off the ground. You can see different habitat improvement ideas and strategies I've implemented already, and I'll talk you through some different plans for the future, short term and long term. I use the Potensic SE drone. It has a 4K camera, but it doesn't adjust for smooth flight, but the price was right. And you can learn an awful lot from a drone. And I'm going to bring you a video on that sometime in the near future too. But today is just going around the whole property kind of counterclockwise. And I'd love to hear what you have to think or say, or questions or comments or ideas, because that's what the point of this channel is supposed to be. So thank you for supporting this channel and watching this video and making it a great day to be outdoors. So here we are on our first leg of my drone only property tour flyover. So we're flying over the tractor trail right now. You'll see the cattle walk that splits up to the southeast, and the green area, that is a CSP oak planting and pine planting we did this past spring. We'll continue on our journey towards that big north main field, and I'll show you all locations of current tree stands, water holes, and mock scrapes. And you can check these out in my different property tours that have boots on the ground too. So next, in just a sec, we're going to come to some proposed habitat changes. The green will be a big food plot that's segmented off by screening, and then the yellow habitat pockets, and then the pines along the edge for access along the north border. And again, this is a revenue source right now, and it is ag, and it is a great way to view deer. But, I want to control deer patterns more and hold them all season after these crop fields become deserts after they're picked. Corn years are awesome, but soybean years, it gets a little bit droughty after things are picked. Next, we're going to come across the border again, and then the border of the new property, and you'll see little foot tracks for an access trail that needs to be made to access this northern edge of the property. And then at the top of the frame, the top of the screen, this is that new 80, and I'll be bringing that to you in a different property tour series as we go through different changes to make to this property. All right, so in this property clip, we're just going to head primarily south. So we're in the northeast corner of the main existing original farm. You can make out that big northeast field that has all kinds of different potential for food plots, screening, and habitat pockets. And I'll show you a map of that in just a second, along with the property boundaries. So in the top of the screen here, we have the existing property boundary and then old property boundary between the two different sections, along with some of the different plans for habitat in the fields. Now we're going to continue south, and one of the things you can see in this frame is that it looks thicker on the left because of the canopy, but on the ground it's actually much thicker on the right, where there was a very different distinction in how they were logged. You can also make out the trails that we have established because of the snow. So circling a bank spline, footprints for walking access, and then red for existing trails. We're just going to continue to head south. Those pines you can make out at the top, that's the neighbors, and those are pretty thick for bedding area. And you can kind of see from right to left or left to right, there are some more trails that I'll take you to in the next segment. So now I just finished flying south, and we're going to fly west, and the pines on the left, that is the neighbor's property. And you can kind of make out some of the trails. We have a nice stand with a water hole and a licking branch. There's a trail for access along the border, and then the ATV trail, which is the thicker color, also circled the bank spline there. Now what we have is basically a giant ridge. It's not a super high ridge, but a ridge system that was primarily popples, but a mix of hardwoods as well. So a great bedding area where the popples have regenerated super thick, and that ridge kind of travels to the northwest. You can also make out the clear cut I'll bring to you in a later flyover part of this series. Some habitat improvements for the fields, green food, red apple trees, and then yellow screening and then habitat pockets. So now we're just flying towards the clear cut, and we're going to finish this off, and then I'm going to fly us back and around towards what I call the cattle walk. All right, so now we're flying towards what I call the new 80, and I'll be bringing that to you in a future series with me decide what to do and how to do it. I'm excited to bring that to you in the future. Now we're going to pan, and I'm going to show you that big northeast field. I've already showed you the plans for different things to do with that. Now we're flying towards the west and over the cattle walk. In the top of the cattle walk in that clump of basswoods, I have a nice bow stand. It is hard to access though. And then now we have two NRCS plantings, a 2023 we already did, and then a future 2024, which would be primarily oaks and swamp oaks. You can see the buildings. You can see that northwest bottom field, which I'm working on screening from the road, and probably change that out of ag, probably just into bedding, to be honest, to keep the food away from the road. Now we have our big main bottom field and the different habitat plans. Red is for apple trees, and green is for food, and then yellow is for screening and cover. As we fly, you can kind of make out some of the ridges and valleys and the deer traffic patterns. On the top, I do have two bow stands, and you can see the trail going through. I have those two bow stands because they set up for slightly different patterns and different wind. Again, you can see those ridges and the pines that were left. We're zooming down now. You get a better feel for the two valleys and then that main ridge in the middle. It does have some south-facing slope on it. And you can kind of see how I cut this trail with a DR brush mower, and I did this just because this is super thick with popple regeneration, and I wanted to have deer come out where that trail comes out because of those stands I already showed you. So that's it for this section. We are leaving the clear cut, heading south, heading to the narrows, and in just a second you're going to see a few different tree stand setups. Two of them are pretty close together, but they serve a different purpose. The one on the top of the screen, water hole, licking branch, and then in the middle of the screen, the potential for a new permanent blind. Thicker trail in red and the thinner trail, walking trail along the border. Now we're going to fly to the south and then kind of pan to the south west a little bit through the middle section of woods here. You can make out that hidden field in the background, and no matter what comes of the rest of the ag fields, I would love to have that one continue to be ag. In the back of the screen right now, you can make out the creek bottom's big food plot, the food plot that's hidden into the woods, and then in the bottom right of the screen you can make out a third food plot. Trails connecting them all, and then again I'd like to put a permanent blind up alongside of the road. Now we're going to fly more to the southwest and get a better view of that, what I call the hidden food plot that's into the woods, which I had forestry mulched in after we logged. And you can make out the southwest cornfield. It's a row cropped field. And I do have miscanthus to screen that from the road. And luckily, the power company worked with me to leave some pine trees that I had transplanted along the road edge there to try to deter road hunters, and it's a field I'd like to get rid of at some point. You can see banks behind the creek bottom, some yellow screening, and then some different food plots that are already been talked about. Now we continue to the southwest a little bit more. So we're starting this one off at that hidden plot we left off on last time. We're actually going to pan all the way around. Next, you're going to see some outlines of some trails that I've established through the creek bottoms, both for deer and for access to the creek bottoms. Then we're going to pan back a little bit to the north and see this big bottom main north field. You can make out the creek in blue, licking branch and tree stand setup, food plots in green, and then in that main field, those are pipe dreams for the future if I ever could take it out of ag. You can see the screening from the trees along the road and a blue NRCS planting that's going to come this upcoming year. Now we're heading north, now east. Here's that middle section of woods, and we're panning back towards the hidden field. And in the hidden field, I have a couple different setups. You'll see a banks blind in the corner, and then two tree stands with licking branches, one with a water hole that are on the different trails. Pan a little bit fast to the south now, and then another tree stand right off the road with a water hole and a licking branch for easy access, especially with that north wind. And then now we're kind of back where we started with the hidden plot, and then that field that is right along the road. And in an earlier clip, I showed you some of the things I did with the miscanthus and then pines along the border. And I would love to take this field out of ag one day, but it's just not in the cards right now. And then now we're going to turn to the left a little bit facing east, and we're in that middle section of woods. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start off at that hidden plot, and we're pretty much just going to fly along the southern border, heading primarily west, and you can make out another field that's right along the road. And unfortunately, that road is above the land, and so the road is above you as you access. And so that field right there, right along the road on the right hand side of the screen, doesn't do much except, attract deer towards evening. Hidden field in the middle of the frame, dynamite honey hole spot that no matter what we end up doing with the property, I'd love to find a way to leave that in primarily ag. And I didn't include any future plans for that in any of these maps. In the middle of the screen right now, in the middle of the woods, you can see a trail that we had forestry mulched in, again, to try and steer deer movements. I didn't mark the tree stand this time, but there is a big oak right on the tractor trail there that is actually set up with a mock scrape and a licking branch for super easy access, especially for a northwest wind, because we're on the southern edge of the property. And now we're going to pan to that hidden field, bank spline in the bottom there. And then what I have is a walking trail along the border. You can make out the access trail with the four-wheeler, and then I have what I call the roundabout with the licking branch and a water hole for another dynamite setup as the wind blows into the neighbor's landing. We're actually backed up now and along that field that is right on the road that I just talked about. So now we're flying over that little middle section of woods that we had the forestry trail mulched in. And if you look close, kind of on the right hand side of the screen off of the field, you can make out a bank spline that we have up, and you can see the four-wheeler trail coming out to the hidden field. And then I also have a walking path that I mowed with a DR mower that goes right along the fence line that is on the left-hand side of that landing that you can make out. Now this is a giant hillside, I should say, or it's a slope, so we're sloping down towards the south here, and you can continue to make out the trail that I have meander around. And I'd like to put in a permanent blind at some point in this middle section of woods. And then now we're in the clear cut. You can make out the two main bottom fields, and I've already showed you some of the maybe future habitat plans for these fields. And so I don't want to burn you out by keep throwing those maps in there, but the idea would be food and then more screening. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly up and just give you a better view of where we've been on the top half of this tour, so you can make out what we call the Oak Island, the clear cut, the cattle walk, and then that northeast field. And then you can make out the trails in red. The blue is CRP or CSP planting, footprints for walking access, stand access, and then the borders in orange. And we were lucky enough to own that new 80, which I'll bring to you later. And then just kind of ending the tour with a pan back towards the middle, and then that is going to be it for this, and then we'll be in the creek bottom. So we are flying southwest. That's at Southwest Field. I've mentioned screening that from the road or potentially taking that out of ag. And now you can see the creek bottoms that I've done some work to trying to get switchgrass to grow. There's a bank spline. Think about moving that up to the hillside. I think that might be a better spot. You can also see the brown, which is, I've planted box elder and other trees there trying to get a funnel to grow. And then my favorite tree stand in the creek bottoms in a big giant bur oak with the licking branch over the food plot, which, by the way, I know you're not supposed to have a favorite stand and not hunt over food plots, but she's dynamite dandy fun spot. So now we are flying southwest towards the intersection and the corner of our property, and we do have access to this. It does get wet, but I throw a piece of plywood down to get the wheeler over, and was able to even get the bank spline in. Now I'm panning down over the food plot, and I'll take you north next. So now what we're going to do is do a quick pan back to that intersection, that corner, that creek bottom corner, and then now we're going to head our way north. And so you can make out the food plot, and you can see my tree stand, licking branch, food plot. The yellow is potential for red osier dogwood for screening. The red along the food plot are actually crabapple trees. And then up on the hill there on the road, you can see a potential site for a future blind, as long as it's legal and it's far enough off the road. So now you can make out the food plots, the big main creek bottom plot, maybe see the bur oak on the left, and that big hidden plot that kind of meanders around to the north, and then the big main north bottom field as we fly up into the creek bottom heading north. And I do have trails that are mowed through here, both for access and to steer deer movement, and they do stay dry. It took me a few years to figure that all out. It's well worth it, and you don't want anything straight, and so the trails meander on purpose, and they do serve the purpose of being beautiful snowshoeing trails in the winter too. Now I'm going to take you to the intersection of these two trails, one coming off the hidden food plot, one coming from the creek bottoms plot. And that question mark, I'd love to get a stand there, but it is a little deep into the property and I worry about access. And so I'd love to hear your ideas on that. And then I'll just wrap us out and we're going to head north towards the northwest corner of the property and then hit to the next clip. So what we're going to do now is we are in the creek bottom and we're going to do a pan to the east all the way around back to the south, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you from south to north where we left off on that food plot, heading north and then wrapping back around to where we started. So here we are heading north along the roads. This is what I call the northwest creek bottom, and I'm going a little fast because I sped up the footage just because it's a lot of the same thick. You can see how the trails, the blue is actually box elders and willows and popples that I planted, another tree stand set up, and then screening alongside the road. It's going to continue to fly along this creek bottom. One of the neat things that you can do this time of year using a drone is you can make out all the different deer travel patterns down in that grass with the snow showing where they've been. And at some point I'll touch on the drone that I use for this, and it's a little windy day, so it's a little bit shaky. You make out the creek that's meandering around and then the buildings where we actually started the tour. Now I'm going to take us pretty much just off the northern boundary, do a quick pan. This would be to the right, which is west, and then you can see that front field, which I'd like to get that out of ag too someday. You can see the clear cut and then all the other major fields and some of the neighboring property. I'm trying to be respectful to the neighbors and not show their land in these different clips. And another benefit of a drone is that you can kind of get an idea of what's going on around you too, a little cheat. So next we're gonna fly into the creek bottom and I'll show you some different things. The orange, that is box elders planted. Red is red osier dogwood. The blue are CSP plantings, and then maybe a bale blind. Then I don't know what to do with that field. That's what that question mark is for, and I got the banks blind circled there. Now all we're gonna do is fly back towards where I'm at with my truck. You can maybe make that up in the upper left. I filmed all these clips all in one day, so more of that creek bottom that I'd love to get box elders to grow in. Red osier dogwood's already planted in there, and then I have that CSP planting coming this year. And maybe one day we're actually going to have all these buildings at the land demolished and perhaps move over there, but I'm kind of fine with not living there too. So one last view kind of the whole thing. You can see some of the different places we've been to, but without any of my marking them up. And that is it for the property tour. Well, that's a wrap on today's video, the drone tour of our original farm. I can't wait to bring you the new 80 that we purchased in another installment and series. If you haven't already checked out my habitat tour from the ground with drone footage, please do that. And if you like this channel, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. It does help me grow the channel and keeps me motivated to keep making more videos. For those that are already subscribed to this channel, thank you for your support and viewership. And as always, making it a great day to be outdoors.